A new trailer for Maxxxine dropped yesterday, giving us our first look at the third film in the X franchise. This film continues the story from X, following Maxxxine Minx in her egocentric quest for fame in 80s Hollywood. But as a mysterious killer stalks and kills the starlets of Hollywood, a trail of blood threatens to reveal her sinister past. Who could this killer be? Well, let's get into it. Welcome to the KillJoy Jake YouTube channel. I'm KillJoy Jake and you're not. In today's update video, we'll be discussing everything we know about Maxxxine, the latest slasher flick from writer-director Ty West, starring Mia Goth, Halsey, Giancarlo Esposito, Kevin Bacon, and many more stars. Maxxxine is a sequel to 2022's X, and it will continue the story of lone survivor Maxxxine Minx as she breaks onto the scene in 80s Hollywood. We learned from the trailer that came out yesterday that Maxxxine has already accrued some fame in Hollywood over the last 6 years, since the events of X in the adult film world, but now she's trying to break into horror movies. From this clapper shot, we not only learned that the film will be taking place in July of 1985, but we also learned that fictional director Elizabeth Bender will be played by Elizabeth Debicki. I think it's hilarious that Maxxxine is trying out for a schlocky horror sequel too. It's not The Puritan, it's The Puritan 2. It's giving me some strong Scream 2 and especially Scream 3 vibes, with this one being set in Hollywood. We get this one shot in the trailer where Maxxxine is on the red carpet for The Puritan 2, premiering at the TCL. This is either how the movie ends or more likely a daydream from our main character, very similar to what we saw in Pearl from 2022, where our character was fantasizing about all the fame she was going to get. Spoiler alert, but that didn't really happen for old Pearl. Speaking of which, is that Pearl at the Psycho House? Nice! I'm so happy to see Mia Goth and all that geriatric makeup again. I really thought that that was over after X. That is so not easy to play two characters in the same movie, especially when you gotta sit in that makeup chair for so long. Mad kudos to Mia Goth. I really dig that this film is clearly a celebration of straight to VHS horror flicks from the mid-80s. Horror boomed in the 80s as more and more filmmakers put together cheap slasher films, hoping to recreate the success of Halloween, Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and so on. Subsequently, the VHS industry also spiked. Discussing this further, director Ty West tells Bloody Disgusting, "What I can tell you is that we're going to catch up with Maxxxine, and we're going to find out what she's up to. The way that X is a movie that is informed by and affected by independent exploitation auteur Americana and 1970s cinema, and Pearl is perhaps affected by the golden age of Hollywood and the glitz and glamour of cinema, Maxxxine will be more about within the industry itself and the boom of VHS. Ty has a ton of killer period pieces under his belt, House of the Devil being my favorite outside of the X trilogy. But the tiny little details that I'm already noticing in the trailer has me impressed. I don't want to say this too soon, but I'm starting to believe actress Mia Goth, who said that this script is the best of the three from the X trilogy so far. Ty West has teased a fourth film, who knows if we get that though. Mia and Halsey are shown walking together late at night down Hollywood Boulevard, where a Charlie Chaplin street performer does a slapstick bit in front of a marquee advertising Joel Schumacher's St. Elmo's Fire. My first thought was, wow, I would love to live in 1985's Hollywood, but then I was swiftly reminded about the Night Stalker who was running amok in this city during that time, something that this film is going to use as an integral plot point. For those who don't know, the infamous Night Stalker, or Richard Ramirez, terrorized California from June of 1984 to August of 1985. He was charged with 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 SAs, and 14 burglaries. He was sentenced to death after the most expensive murder trial of California at the time. So with this being a highly publicized case, will Richard Ramirez be the killer in Maxxxine? Probably not. And there's a couple reasons as to why. If it's this shot revealing the date to be past Richard's real-life arrest on August 31st of 1985, but more importantly, Maxxxine is going to be a whodunit. That wouldn't really make sense if the reveal was a real-life killer that we've already known about for 35 years now. This isn't true crime, it's a slasher flick. My guess is that whoever ends up being the killer in Maxxxine is using the Night Stalker simply as a moniker to cover up whatever their real intentions may be. A suspect from the cast list is Kevin Bacon's PI character. He's introduced to us in the trailer by saying his employer is a very powerful man. He's also rocking a southern accent, making me think that maybe he's connected to the church from which Maxxxine is from. You'll remember that there was a bit of a twist ending in X where it was revealed that the preacher on the TV was actually Maxxine's father the entire time. Not only do I think our killer is taking advantage of the Richard Ramirez case, but I also believe that he or she is connected to that same church. We learned from Scream that motives are incidental. Kevin Bacon's character, however, comes off as a red herring to me, and I believe he'll be dead before the big reveal. After all, he is credited as with Kevin Bacon, making me think he's not going to be in the movie for that long. There are some other characters from the cast list, though, that we didn't learn too much about from yesterday's trailer. Lily Collins plays a fellow actress who could be motivated by jealousy towards Maxxine, potentially a similar situation with Halsey's character, and Moses Sumney is playing with a knife in the back half of the trailer. He gives me more of a Randy Meeks vibe, though. And of course, Giancarlo Esposito is known for playing an excellent villain. Anyone who's watched Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, The Mandalorian, The Boys, potentially Abigail, and the Far Cry 6 trailer know that. We didn't really learn much about his character though, except that he's the host of some sort of talk show. He doesn't really give me killer vibes. Me personally though, I'm speculating that suspect number 1 is Bobby Cannavale. Bobby is best known for his roles on Third Watch, Nurse Jackie, and Will and Grace. He seems to be playing a cop alongside potential partner Michelle Monaghan here. Maybe it's the Scream 6 and Thanksgiving fanboy within me talking here, but I think that once again, in our whodunit, the cops are the killers. Think about this. They're using the Night Stalker to their advantage. Who would know the most about this killer in 1985 while the guy's still on the loose? The cops who are chasing him. Bobby is also shown for a split second late in the trailer wearing the same black gloves as our killer from earlier.
I knew 3 people who were murdered in 3 days. I'd be pretty scared.
I will mention that this time he has a gun in his hands opposed to a knife, but still. He also appears to be standing on a hill with out-of-focus city lights in the background, making me think that he's right in front of the Hollywood sign. This could take place during another sequence we see in the trailer where Maxxine is fighting somebody right in front of the Hollywood sign. Now, if this ends up being the case, I can't really knock this film for having a similar twist ending to those previously mentioned whodunits. Maxxine has been in the works since pretty much around the same time that those other 2 movies went into production, so it might actually just be one big coincidence. Overall, I am super excited for Maxxine, and not just because it's a continuation to 2 of my favorite horror films from 2022. It looks like if Scream 3 was actually scary and directed by Dario Argento. I am so hyped for this movie. The entire cast is made up of super consistent actors, and the 80s feel doesn't come off as overplayed. But if you're sick of the 80s nostalgia after Stranger Things and its clones, well, I get that too. If I'm right about the killer reveal, once again, I don't think we can really knock this film for being too similar to Scream 6 and Thanksgiving. Even if it does end up being the cops again, the motive can be entirely different here. Remember those connections to the church. That would actually make so much sense considering the themes of this film. Movie censors and the church would label horror films as satanic. So of course, Ty West, the guy who has built his career off of making disgusting little horror flicks, is going to vilify these groups. That would be such a perfect motive for this film as long as they're able to keep a steady focus on that. Don't lean into the family side of that as much as Scream 6 and Thanksgiving did. Focus a little more on making the commentary your killer. Despite that one possible trepidation, I think Maxxine is going to be one of the biggest horror films of the year. It has a great summer release date of July 5th, just in time for July 4th weekend. So with that, what do you all think of Maxxine? Is this going to be the slasher flick of the summer, or is it not necessarily on your radar? The 80s glitz and glamour isn't for you. Leave me something about it in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel now, or I will release 100 feral monkeys within your house. You don't want that to happen. I don't want to pay all the money for those crazy monkeys. Just subscribe to this channel and you can avoid all of that trouble. Thank you all for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.